an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Killing Eve, Season 2, Episode 6. I hope you like Missionary. In this episode, Eve and Niko finally have it out. It's taken a long time to get here. I'm not sure if this is going to stick, but I think it's going to stick. And I'm glad. Also, I loved watching this guy get smacked in the face with a book. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. First of all, thank you very much to Andrea for commissioning this episode. Andrea, I was so excited to see another Killing Eve on the schedule. Y'all don't even know how little I can imagine what comes next each episode. I think that's what draws me so much to this show, is the fact that it feels like a constant surprise. It's just so hard to surprise me nowadays. So many things run in tropes, and granted, a lot of times that can still work. I've said before, you don't have to break a trope. You can just do it well, and that still totally can be really compelling to watch. However, this show follows no formula that I can foresee, other than like kind of chaos theory. Pardon me as I move my mic. It's very invested in the characters, and the characters are all so unpredictable in their way that it makes the plot unpredictable, because they just do whatever the fuck they feel like within that episode, and they go in directions that I didn't think they would. So this episode, man, it starts off with an amazing scene between Niko and Eve. It picks up after Villanelle told Niko about being stabbed and all of that. And he goes home. Apparently it started pouring rain. And he confronts Eve about what Villanelle told him. And Eve says to him, "You can't believe anything she says. She's a liar." Which, when you accuse somebody of lying because you're lying, that is one of those particularly distasteful moments in a person's life that I think if we participate in that, we all try to choose to forget we ever did it. And he tells her that he knows that he really can't trust Villanelle, but for some reason in this case, he believes her. And then he shoves Eve against the wall and asks her if she would rather he love her or frighten her. And she says, "I don't know." And he pushes her to the ground onto her knees and tells her to get upstairs. And she crawls away from him on all fours with a look of such lust on her face. And in the morning, she is effervescent. It's so clear that this is exactly what the fuck she wanted and didn't know she wanted. And it's such a bummer for the way this whole thing goes down between the two of them, because she clearly thinks that him having like made this sort of, him coming around the corner this way has sort of in her mind fixed some things. And for him, he says, because she says last night was amazing, and he tells her, "I was up all night trying to work out why I felt so unbelievably shitty and sad." And she's super confused and is like, "I thought that you had a good time." And he said, and I thought you enjoyed it. He says, I did. I loved it. And she says, so what's the problem? And he says, I asked you when you got back from Paris. I wanted to talk to you. She says, you wouldn't have understood. He says you're wrong. She says, no, I'm not. And he says, I guess we'll never know. I gotta go. And she tries to stop him. And he says, I can't do this anymore. And her response is not, I love you. Please stay. Her response is not, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Her response is not, I know I fucked up. It's, don't leave. You can't leave me alone. Which really is one of the most honest things she said to him in the last handful of episodes. She doesn't want to be left alone. It is not about Niko. And it's so clear it's not. And it hasn't been. And it's not that Niko's not a good guy. He's obviously a very good guy. That's part of the point of why this isn't working between the two of them. It's just, she shouldn't be with anyone. Eve is just an incredibly self-absorbed person, at least right now. It's nobody in a relationship with her would feel cared about. Even Villanelle, who is fascinated with her, is less interested in Eve than in the concept of somebody like Eve. And if they were together, Eve is only interested in Villanelle for the thrill and the danger, which is exactly what Niko seems to suspect. And it is, again, would be very much less about Villanelle herself than about what she can get out of her. That's not to say that when you're in a relationship, you're not looking for something from the other person. Of course, that's what relationships are for, is looking for support, looking for someone to talk things over with and get ideas from. But it's meant to be a give and take, and Eve only cares about the take part, and the give part, I believe she has this sort of idea of who she is being enough that that's the gift itself. And I mean, in her and Villanelle's case, that's kind of true, because she is simply drawn to tracking Villanelle and figuring out what's going on with her and finding other killers. So it does work for them in that way, but it's not this is not healthy. This is not good for anybody. And so, with the way things go later this episode, and I'm just going to jump ahead to that, it is a hell of a scene, you guys, because, we've known for ages, right, that she and Niko should not be together. This has been growing more and more clear as time has gone on, how the two of them do not mesh anymore. Maybe they did at one time. I don't know. It's hard to say, because there's a big part of me that feels like maybe they never did. And I never got to see any time that they did. So I sort of wonder. And it's potentially possible Eve is only just beginning to tap into who she actually is. And so she was with Niko because it seemed like this worked. And as she's getting to know herself a little bit better, she's realizing that oh, actually, this isn't really who I am after all. And we aren't as compatible as I originally thought. So regardless, we see this. She goes to this address that she apparently got from the school for where Niko is staying. And he comes to the door not expecting her there. And he says, I said I would come pick my stuff up. What are you doing here? And she says, I would just drop it off. I thought I would be helpful. And then what's-her-face opens the door behind him a little further, and it's clear that he is staying with the girl that has been flirting with him and is low-key in love with him. She invites Eve in for a cuppa. And Eve, when she sees how uncomfortable Niko is like, oh, I would love to come in. Yes, please. So this girl, first of all, has her tits jacked up to her chest. I'm not hating on her. They look amazing. But it's very clearly that she's going for a certain look here. And she asks to use the bathroom. And what follows is this scene where she's just angry and has nowhere to like direct that anger. And she just goes through this girl's stuff in an attempt to, I don't know, vent frustration, get more of a handle on who this girl is as a person. What kills me is that this girl's house is honestly very cheery and fun. But Villanelle, do you see what I just did? Eve is just disgusted by the whole thing. So she goes through her shit. She finds this like weird case full of like tweezers and just all kinds of like sort of grooming stuff. It's like a really old fashioned one with a twirling ballerina in the middle. And she grabs that and yanks it off. And it looks like something that was an antique. It looks like something that she got that was handed down to her, you know, that kind of thing. Opens up the woman's underwear drawer where she has all of these bras very neatly laid out. It's all extremely feminine and organized and pretty. It's just, this girl is the kind of person that is in direct contrast to who Eve is. And I'm not saying that Eve is masculine at all, but she is a much more sort of utilitarian person. This girl is very interested in prettiness, in colors and ruffles and florals and things like this. And there is something about the fact that Eve is so angry as she goes through this woman's stuff that I really understand. I don't know what I would do either. But she comes upstairs and catches Eve in the middle of this and says, I understand that things between you and Niko are tough, but I'd really rather you didn't drag me into this. And Eve says, oh, really? You don't want to get dragged in. And honestly, the man is sleeping on your fucking couch. You don't get to say, I don't want to be dragged into this when he's sleeping on your couch, bitch. I'm sorry. You know that. You knew that. You have to realize that. And she asks Niko once he comes upstairs, because her name is Gemma? I'm going to say Gemma. Gemma calls for him once Eve starts to kind of get in her face. And she says, what are you doing? And he says, Gemma has a sofa bed downstairs. And Eve interrupts and says, that's not what I asked you, though. He, rather than answering, says, I'd like you to apologize. And he tries to tell Eve, Gemma's my friend. You remember friends, don't you? There's nothing going on here. And Eve looks at Gemma and looks at him and says, you're right. There's nothing going on here. And her eyes fill with tears. And she says, I hope you like missionary position. I hope you like missionary. And gives Gemma a very ironic thumbs up. As Gemma sort of immediately responds, I do actually. And she pats Niko on the shoulder as she walks out and says, "You'll be happy here, Niko." And he says, "I dread to think where you'll be happy, Eve." And I don't know what to think about this situation. Because Niko knows perfectly well that this girl's in love with him. He's not an idiot. Come on. He has to be aware. You don't stay on the couch of a girl that you know is into you and then try to plead ignorance. Don't insult Eve. Okay, look. You're right to leave her. You're right she lied to you. You're right about everything, honestly. She is a toxic person that you shouldn't be around. However, don't pretend this is anything other than exactly what the fuck it looks like, sir. And this doesn't, in life, this isn't where things would end between the two of them. It wouldn't be this simple. Not usually, anyway. In my case, with my husband, when we split up, it was pretty much this simple. I basically left for somebody else. We met one time from me leaving to just talk about setting up the divorce and never saw one another again. But they are living in the same city. He still has a bunch of stuff at their house. This probably is not completely over. However, I low-key hope that it is. I just don't see it. You know, I think this is the right way for things to go. I'm wondering if the show, like the writers were aware that there was only so much more that they could do with Niko. I really hope we get to move on from this kind of drama. And it's not like this was uninteresting, because it's been very revealing about who Eve is. This is something like, when you show this sort of drama with a person who's like got this really high pressure job and they have a spouse who's like trying to talk to them and the communication's really bad, a lot of times it can just be really frustrating because the spouse who's got the high powered job keeps doing their best and being foiled somehow in a way that the show constantly, and I say show, but could be movie, it could be book, constantly seems to try to make it seem like that person's really attempting to do their best and they keep being foiled by circumstances, or something keeps happening that's just like making them look bad or worse than they should look. And I like that this show isn't doing that. They are genuinely letting us see Eve be a liar, be mean, be abusive. They are allowing Eve to not be doing her best. And so, whereas this could be an extremely boring storyline in the wrong hands, where it's just tedious and you're like, oh my God, get this person out of here. As much as I feel ready for it to be over, it just has run its course as a story. It's not because it was not well done. It has been extremely helpful in showing me who Eve is as a person. So, well done, writers, is what I'm saying. Now, we're going to double back a little bit here, because he leaves, and then we have the couple scenes with Carolyn in this episode are really something. So it turns out that Constantine is staying with Carolyn, and he is making breakfast downstairs when one of Carolyn's lovers comes down, apparently not prepared for there to be another man in the kitchen. It's also really weird because Constantine is like in a full coat and turtleneck thing, and this dude is in just his boxer shorts. And turns around and says she hasn't got married again, has she? Oh, God. So he's having this conversation with this dude about how, oh yeah, you're one of her old friends. I'm also an old friend. Carolyn has so many old friends. And as they have this like bit of a confrontation, I don't want to call it that because it's not really too antagonistic, but it is a little salty. Kenny walks in and just sort of stares around at this situation with a real expression on his face of being a deer in headlights and realizing that he should not be here. And he turns around and walks out without saying a word to anybody. And honestly, this scene just killed me. I loved this so much. So we see Villanelle. She's watching bad TV and she gets bored and she goes to Eve's house and basically just commits a bunch of mild acts of mischief. She peels a banana and tosses it into like the salt bowl. She uses Eve's toothbrush as she walks around and then sticks it back in Eve's bag. She mixes up all of the CDs in different cases just for something to do. She's just bored, as she says later. And this is honestly pretty similar to where I felt Eve was headed when she's in Gemma's apartment later. It feels like the same kind of thing where she's just not sure what to do. So she just decides to kind of fuck with things because she, you know, and that's sort of what Villanelle's vibe is here too. This feeling of like, she doesn't have anything better to do. And this is the only thing she can think of to sort of vent her frustration. So, we have a really cool looking, I think, Moroccan restaurant. There's like a hookah bar inside. It's gorgeous, honestly. It's so beautiful. And Carolyn is here waiting to have a chat with her about what's going on with Aaron Peel. And they are watching a camera feed that was taken by a journalist. And apparently he knew that this dude had a secret camera. And so even though he doesn't tend to take interviews with the press, he did it with this one person because he was aware what they were trying to do and wanted to embarrass the guy. So this journalist, whose name we don't know and we don't see them, asks, what do you say to people who think that you've got too much power from the surveillance that you're able to do? And this dude says, oh, you mean like the surveillance you're doing right now from your bag? Don't turn it off. I know it's fucking there. I'm not an idiot. You like recording things you shouldn't, don't you? What choice little tidbit could I share with your employers? How about the S&M sessions you have with your wife? And the man says, I'm sorry? To which Peel replies, she does laugh about it with her friends. And the guy says, how do you know about that? And he says, there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. And honestly, I'm so excited to see where things go by the end of this episode. I don't know how it's going to continue, but this guy is truly the bottom of the barrel in terms of human morality. And the way that, like, I can't help but wonder if this woman does actually laugh about it with her friends, or if he just said that shit to undermine this guy's confidence, because that feels like the exact sort of shit that he would say that isn't even remotely true. And Eve says we've got to talk to this guy about the journalist. And when Carolyn says a bit late for that, she looks back up and they see there's a photo of the guy's dead body lodged in a sewer pipe underneath one of the stations, Farringdon Station, I think she says. Urban explorer overreached himself is the official story. Yikes. So, goddamn. Like, honestly, that feels almost too sloppy. I guess that they got a hold of this footage when maybe Peele is confident that nobody has it, and so nobody would be able to make this connection. But, I mean, or else he just is so certain that there's no possible actual evidence linking them. It's only a circumstantial, it's a, you know, anybody with common sense would know that the two of them were related, but they can't prove anything. So she tells Eve, there will be a Faraday conference in Rome 2 weeks from now. You need to make sure that we're there with him. And we have to find somebody to get close to him with. So then we see her with her cohorts, and they're discussing the fact that Peele is extremely paranoid and not close to literally any human beings other than his sister. She's the only one. And when we see a little bit about what their relationship is like later, it becomes clear that he has an emotionally abusive relationship with her as well. He probably is a bit of a psychopath himself. Like, it just seems like he doesn't have the means to relate to other people. And to a point, I think that is because of a fundamental lack of like empathy or interest in other people as people. And so getting somebody in there, they can't have, you know, a hot woman in a short skirt just come up to him and worm her way into his bed. He apparently has never had a girlfriend or boyfriend. There's nothing to suggest any sort of relationship in his history. He doesn't have like friends, and anybody, like, you can assume that they are filming, or he is filming and watching every move that people make when they are on his property, whether it be the office or his home. So they need to figure out somebody that they can involve in this that would not be recognized. And so they go to Carolyn's house, and Constantine opens the door. And I had forgotten, first of all, I did not know that, I would like to have heard the lead up to Constantine winding up in Carolyn's apartment as a house guest. But also I love the fact that Eve has to just sort of roll with it and be like, oh, am I still mad at you for selling me out and skipping town with Villanelle? No. I mean, I've completely forgotten about the whole thing. It's totally fine. I thought that this was pretty good. He says, you're not yelling, but it feels like you're yelling. I enjoyed the scenes with them a great deal. So they talk to Villanelle, and the deal is they want her to get in with this guy by pretending to be somebody, but they do not want her to kill him, which is a bummer for her. And there follows this awesome scene where she's asking Eve what exactly it is that Eve wants in a character. And first she asks how things are going with Niko, to which Eve says, none of your business. And then Villanelle says, okay, so who is it that you're looking for exactly? And she starts off with, so, and she does, this is so good, guys. I'm listening to it right now. Gap year tragedy who fell in love with her coke dealer. A sun cream heiress from Sydney who has her own, like, I can't do it, super successful bikini brand. And then she lands on a New York woman, which, because I know American accents, that one particularly I think isn't as strong. But that's because I'm not as familiar with the other accents. And I'm sure if you are, you can hear the slight cracks in those as well. That's not to say she's not good at the accent. It's just that I can hear a tiny bit of offness in the occasional word. So yeah, she's just arrived from New York after one too many nights on the wrong side of the bridge, and she has a really, really, really annoying accent. And Eve says, I like her accent. What's her name? And she says, Billy, which is a pretty good name, honestly. I like it. This scene, guys, I love her cycling through her accents and personas. It's really, really fun to watch. So then we have them setting up, Hugo comes in and Eve yells at him, Kenny set up her social media. I needed to go way back. And he has to correct her and say, Hugo. She says, what? You called me Kenny. Did I? Huh. Sorry. Give her a job. Oh, wait. No job. A couple of vanity degrees, something wishy-washy. Philosophy, history of art, and I can't remember a coworker's name again. I'm sorry, guys. Throw in a couple of DUIs and don't make her too clean. And he says, one rich insta-hottie coming up. I was like, oh, that is a really good way to put it. Perfect. Which is exactly who she kind of plays as. She's somebody who doesn't have to worry about money. You don't really know where it comes from. Probably a trust fund, something. And she is able to fritter away her time because she doesn't have anything else to do, really. So this is when Carolyn talks to the two of them, Eve and Villanelle, says Moscow rules, Cold War analog, no messages, no calls, no emails. We have to act on the assumption that Aaron will be watching and recording everything, including his sister, so no breaking cover, not even for a second. And this is something really interesting. Villanelle interrupts and says, you're the real boss, aren't you? And Eve starts to interrupt her, and she says, shh, Eve, don't be disrespectful. Please, Carolyn, continue. And Carolyn says, yes, I am. Guys, the look on Villanelle's face tells me she might be ready to move on from Eve. She just really is digging Carolyn. This isn't the first time they've met either. Reminder, they met in that prison. So she knows her. I'm assuming Villanelle is also staying with Carolyn at this time. But maybe it's simply seeing Carolyn in action with somebody who is her inferior that's really doing the trick for her. It's just a fascinating moment that I feel portends something. So at this point, this dude comes in, and he is here to show them all of the tech. And they have these earpieces that she is going to have so that they can feed her information about whatever topic should come up that she may be unprepared for. She also gets dossiers on stuff that she's supposed to know. Excuse me. But of course she does not read them. So they wind up being probably a huge amount of effort to put together, but ultimately useless. So yeah, she has this this grain-sized earpiece that she later on decides to swallow because there's no other way to get rid of it without him realizing, finding it somewhere. And I can't believe that she sticks it into a truffle or something and swallows it. I don't even remember. So Eve and Villanelle have a meeting the next morning, and they're talking about how Villanelle is going to try to befriend his sister via an AA meeting. And Villanelle tries to bring up Niko again and says he's too nice. He's too normal for you. You know that. And Eve says, stop it. You will never understand how much harder it is to be nice and normal and decent than it is to be like you. Like us, you mean. And Eve doesn't correct her. I think she knows. I think she's beginning to come to terms with who she actually is. It's taken a while, but she is. So we see the AA meeting, and this is an unusual one because I feel like people are a little bit more willing to call one another out. And I say unusual because I've been to many support groups like this, and I wish more of them were this way. I wish more were challenging rather than being uniformly supportive. Because when you are an addict of any kind, you definitely can get into a cycle of self-pity and justifying why you're doing what you're doing. And the problem with addiction is that everybody has a reason to want to escape their life. Everybody has shit going on. That's never up for discussion. It's just about how you decide to handle it. And you're here because allegedly, you know, the way you've been handling it isn't working for you. But if you keep making excuses for why it's fine, you don't want to make any changes, clearly, you know? So Villanelle is looking around and observing everybody and listening to the story from Amber about how she's like remembering days that have gone missing and having to piece together what happened from whatever was in the bottom of her bag. And she says cocaine and alcohol primarily, but honestly, whatever I can get. And I recognize a lot of what Amber was saying. I wish I was a better person. It's so much harder to be nice and normal and decent than it is to be like this. I hurt someone. And she starts to bring up Eve's life. When I was in Paris, my husband just left. He couldn't take it. He can't handle me anymore. He's too nice. My best friend was killed in an accident. It was my fault. I have nobody left. And the man leading the meeting says, poor me. And she says, what? And he says, poor me, pour me a drink, which I've heard before. And Villanelle does not understand what it is he's saying. Because she has never been challenged this way. She has never had people like call her out when she's playing a role. There's never been a need for that. Most of the time when she's playing a role, it's meant to be a surface interaction where somebody takes her at her word that she is who she says because of what she's wearing, because of how she spoke. And it's a surface moment that she just needed to utilize to get wherever she's going. But this, she's supposed to be a real person becoming vulnerable and opening up to these people. And they can sense she's not doing that. So, you know, she starts to get angry and talk about how I'm having a bad time, yada, yada, yada. And they interrupt to move on to the next person. And she looks over and Amber sort of makes eye contact with her and gives her a look of commiseration. She's got an expression on her face that's sort of like, oh, honey, I've been there before. And then we jump to her being Villanelle, finding a dead fly and burying it in a muffin that Amber's sort of, I don't know what to call her. Babysitter really feels like the word. Takes with her and bites into. And Amber is explaining to her, everybody knows when you're being honest and when you're not. So you've got to be honest. That's the way this goes. And the next time, it does go better. It's a very interesting moment. We'll get there in a second. She has a confrontation after with Eve, who's super angry that she used her own life for this moment. And Eve has to explain to her, like, first of all, that was fucked up for me personally. But you also have to understand that the point here is to be honest. Like, that's what you have to bring to the table. So reciting some shit that happened to me is not going to have the emotional weight for you that they're looking for in order to signal that you're being genuine with them. So then we have the scene. I love this, guys. It's so good because it feels like it is real. It's hard to know with Villanelle when things are real and when she is playing her role. But she starts off with, I have real trouble telling the truth. And I don't understand the concept, actually. But somebody told me it was important. So here goes. Most of the time, most days, I feel nothing. I don't feel anything. And she starts to get very teary-eyed here. It is so boring. I wake up and think, again? Really? I have to do this again? And what I really don't understand is, how come everybody else isn't screaming with boredom too? Trying to find ways of making me feel something more and more and more, but it doesn't make any difference. No matter what I do, I don't feel anything. I hurt myself. It doesn't hurt. I buy what I want. I don't want it. I do what I like. I don't like it. And I'm just so bored. And that's sort of the end of her share. And they seem to feel like that was a real moment. They all seem to sort of like feel that. And later on, Amber tells her how powerful that was. And it's a really interesting insight. I love not only learning how bored she constantly is, although we know that, but I had that boredom as sort of a surface level. I had it in my mind as something that was like a symptom without really realizing, I mean, it is a symptom. The boredom is a symptom of her not being able to emotionally connect with anything. But I never put that together. I always thought that she was more like a child who simply just had attention deficit disorder somehow and constantly needed a new thing and a new thing and a new thing. But I didn't realize that was because she never felt satisfied with anything. I thought it was because she was like craving the next thrill and realizing that the thrill doesn't exactly even ever happen really puts a different spin on anything. Also, I love her saying, I don't understand why everyone else isn't also screaming with boredom. That in particular hit me. Not because I feel that way at all. Not even a little. But because that feeling of being isolated from everyone else, experiencing something that when you look around, it doesn't seem anyone else is also experiencing, that has to be a really alienating experience. And I think I imagined Villanelle as somebody who enjoys feeling separate from everyone. And so seeing that, the fact that she's experiencing something that other people aren't, I almost thought that she would see that as a badge of honor that set her apart. But realizing that, in fact, she sees it as incredibly frustrating and mystifying that everybody isn't also as frustrated as she is. That particularly, I understand. There is, as I am experiencing more of the world, and I see the way that some people interact with the world versus the way that I do, I am constantly shocked that the way I see the world, which is I want everybody to be safe, I want everyone to have health care, I want everyone to have enough to eat and a house to live in, that other people genuinely don't feel that way. It makes me feel so cut off from them as human beings. There's nothing to relate to as a person to people who don't see that and feel that, because that is so foundational to who I am as a person. This desire for justice and rightness. And to know it's not that I'm alone in my situation. There are other people who agree with me, but not even close to everyone. That is already alienating enough. Even though I have people who agree with me, I still feel completely alone sometimes anyway. And something like what Villanelle is describing, much, much more so. I mean, even other people who did the work that she did. We saw her teamed up with another crew of people who were also assassins. But they obviously were able to form connections to each other, to other people, that she can't. So it isn't even like a reliable enough thing that, oh, I'll just find some other cold-blooded killer and they'll get it. No, not necessarily at all. And I don't know. I thought that this was really interesting and revealing. And I hope that she was actually being like genuine here. I think she was. It's difficult to say, sometimes with her. And I've said before that the moments where she is alone are the ones that I really trust the most. But I think here, because she was sort of in a position where she kind of couldn't get out of being honest, it was like the one time that she managed it. So then she's outside and she's trying to talk to Amber. And Amber's handler comes out and sort of interrupts. And it's a weird, I still don't really know who this woman is, like, functionally. I assume somebody that her brother hired to watch over her, but I thought maybe somebody that the law, like, is she on, like, probation for a DUI or something, and they, like, assign someone to watch? I don't know. But this woman says, "I'm sorry, Amber. Allow me to remind you of the terms of your agreement that you form no associations with anyone in these rooms for your own well-being." Is, like, whose agreement? What is this? So Villanelle is looking at this woman, and it's very clear. She sees this lady in particular as an obstacle. Now, to me, this lady is one version of an obstacle that has not yet gone away, or so I thought. Like, she has been assigned to watch Amber, but she's not an irreplaceable asset, right? Because she gets killed, they just hire a different person, I would assume. I don't know. So we see Villanelle approaching this woman, telling her, "You need to give Amber some space." The woman tells her, this is none of your business, back off, and begins to walk away. And Villanelle pursues her and says, hey, I'm going through a really difficult time at the moment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? And she gives the woman a hug just as this bus, or it's like a concrete truck or something, rolls up, and she shoves the woman in front of the truck. And she does this all while keeping contact with Eve. And it's a really weird moment where I really like, too, that they chose a vehicle for this woman to be hit that is low enough in the back that she and Eve can maintain eye contact even though the vehicle is still between the two of them. I feel like Eve is mad about this, but also like kind of interested. I don't know. And Amber comes outside and sees this woman crushed, all this blood. And Villanelle wraps her arms around her and gives Eve this triumphant smile over Amber's shoulder as she comforts her, because she's going to be Amber's friend in this terrible, tragic moment, thus ensuring a kind of bond between the two of them. It's honestly very good. Like, it's not, like I said, I kind of feel like this woman just, all they need to do is hire someone else to replace her, and there's still an obstacle there. But if you look at it as they bonded over this tragedy, that adds an emotional aspect that wasn't there, and that changes things. So then we have Eve going to Carolyn's fencing practice. I love the fact that she's fencing, first of all. Like, I know. It's just so her. I just love it so much. And she's trying to talk to Carolyn about this accident. And Carolyn's just very cursorily like, yes, it's tragic. Has contact been made between Villanelle and Amber Peel? And you can see how I think Eve like wants to be irritated or disgusted or something with Carolyn, but it's not even really that she can be, because like Eve is a brutal person in her own way. I think she just keeps being reminded of who Carolyn actually is and what her priorities really are, and hoping that Carolyn is going to be a little bit more like Bill. And she just kind of forgets and then gets reminded, like, Carolyn has a very clear objective. This woman doesn't mean anything to her. Whatever, you know? It was just, I don't know. I found that to be kind of a telling moment. So then we have the scene at the end of the episode where Villanelle, and I say the end, it's like in the last third, but it's a long scene. Villanelle is at Amber's house with her brother. And this scene. First of all, the two of them begin speaking Greek in front of Villanelle at one point in order to try and like cut her out of the conversation, and also to sort of, he's trying to push her buttons by making it very clear he's cutting her out of the conversation. And Villanelle is attempting to just be casual, but he is so paranoid and so aggressive that there's no way for her to be casual in conversation, because he's constantly challenging her on everything she says. And I kept thinking it was because he knew who she was. But I began to realize he would be like this with anybody. It has nothing to do with him sensing the truth about her and everything about who he just is as a person. He, regardless of what friend she brought home, whether he sensed that they were being honest or not, wouldn't factor into it at all. So she goes into his study to sort of like look at things, and she's like looking at different books, and all of a sudden the bookshelf swivels in front of her, and he's standing there, And he says, "Are you lost?" And she says, "No, obviously not. I'm just being nosy," as she's like holding the book. And he stares her down without blinking for a minute. And then says, "The loo's that way. Try not to be too nosy on your way back." So she swallows the thing in her ear, finally. And then we go to them playing this weird game. And she asks why, like, let's see. She asks, "Do you guys play this game all the time? Is this something you two always do?" And he says, "Meaning?" And she says, "Nothing. I was just asking." And he says, "A lot of questions. You have the mind of a 5-year-old. She's just, you guys are playing a weird card game. Just the 3 of you. This is weird, dude. For you to try and act like this is not weird is even weirder." So she tries to chime in and say, "Hey, asshole, she's my friend. What are you doing?" And he says, "You're struggling with the rules of Dixit, a simple storytelling game for players aged 8 and upwards, and yet you claim to have 2 philosophy degrees." And she says, "I do have 2. And he says, "I know. I checked. Which is why I'm puzzled. With this whole faux dits act, one part of the equation doesn't add up. Please remind me, what exactly did you study again?" So then he starts to fucking quiz her. In short, he's behaving like a dude in the comments who tries to get you to prove to him that you are an expert in whatever you are an expert in, because he seems to think for some reason that he's going to be the final say in whether you know what you're talking about, even though you have no reason to want to impress him. You don't know who he is, but he is so entitled to your time and your effort that he just assumes you are going to play this game. So eventually, because by the way, Villanelle is being monitored this whole time by Eve and Constantine, who are in the van. And Constantine is very lackadaisical about the whole thing. And Eve is out here trying, like, in a frenzy to get answers to the questions this guy is asking. And Constantine seems to realize, as Villanelle does, answering this guy's questions is not going to change the way he's behaving. Eve is sort of seeing this as this guy trying to poke holes in her because he suspects her. But I think Constantine and Villanelle both can tell that's not what this is about. This is just an ego thing in general. And that playing his game is not how this is going to work. So he gets up at one point and he goes and gets a book and drops it in her lap in this really, like, aggressively rude way. And says, "Here you are. If you're going to lie, at least do a bit of research." And she says, "Oh, I get it. You're a bully." And he looks at his sister. I thought that was very interesting when she says that. He doesn't rebut. He doesn't say, no. What do you mean? He turns and looks at his sister, who won't make eye contact with him. And she says, "Why would I even bother to have a conversation with someone like you? What is the point? My dad taught me that there is only one way to communicate with a bully." And he says, "I see. And what was his advice?" with this fucking condescension as he leans forward. And Villanelle smacks him across the face with the book. And his sister looks like she about peed her pants with delight. And his nose is bleeding. And it's so good. Eve wants to get out of the car and immediately, like, go and, find her. And Constantine tells her to let Villanelle cool off. And I'm out of time. But Villanelle goes to this kebab shop, and it's a weird moment where she asks the guy what the meat is on the spinning thing. And he tells her lamb mainly. She says, but you can put any meat in there. People will eat anything if you cut it thin enough and put hot sauce on it. So these two girls come in, sort of distract the situation. And Villanelle winds up kind of stalking them on the way home, being vaguely spooky on purpose, and then eventually circling around to meet them face forward so that it looks like she wasn't the one spooking them, and they immediately, seeing a woman, latch onto her and are like, oh my God, sweetie, you shouldn't be out walking alone. We thought that we were in trouble. If you want to walk with us, since it's dark, it will be safer. And Villanelle says, yeah, I would love that. And turns around and walks with them and begins smiling and smirking to herself. And the episode ends there, and I genuinely do not want to know what the fuck happens next. Like, she doesn't make these girls into kebab sausages or something, does she? Like, I get agitated. But I do love her smacking that guy in the face so fucking much. I really love it. I love her. Anyway, so that's the end of the episode. Thank you very much, Andrea, for commissioning this one. This show is so good. I'm so interested in what happens next. I really am. And I will see you guys hopefully soon with a new one. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.